A few basic things that I wanted to talk about, I guess, for like an indoor grow. One would be setting up your tent. Making sure that you have an environment. It doesn't always have to be a tent. A tent is just the easiest way to control it because it's a smaller environment. There's a thing called vapor pressure deficit. Basically, what happens is as the plant uptakes water from its roots, it releases it through its leaves. As the same way humidity bothers us when you're really sweating, you can't get a breeze, your plant does the same thing. It's going to transpire water, and sometimes that water and those nutrients will rest on its leaves. If your environment is not dialed in, you're going to have a really hard time diagnosing your problems or growing your plants. The easiest way to keep that environment dialed in is just keep your humidity and temperature 15 to 20 degrees apart. If you're at 80 degrees in your tent, make sure your humidity is about 60. It'll go through, the water will transpire correctly, the nutrients will be uptake, and you'll have a really healthy plant. I like to do with photo periods is grow them out and take clones. So that is what we're going to be doing today. We're going to take clones off of this plant. It's a strawberries and cream from DC Farmhouse. Our living soil instructor, Big Worm Organics, is one of his strains. It does really well. It's a nice vertical grower. As long as you train it, you're able to just limit how it actually grows and control that canopy. You can take notice, like what I typically do. I've had this plant for about only 3 or 4 months now. I'm relatively new to Virginia, so I moved back from Michigan from a brief stint up in Northern Virginia. So this is the first time I've actually been able to take mothers and have evidence, so I'm really excited. Yeah. And Peru has been growing autoflowers for a long time, but I do love me some photos. Do you have any questions about temperature or humidity or any problems that you guys have dialing in your environments that I could address directly?
Well, I've got this outdoor plant.
Sure.
It looked beautiful all in the vegetative state.
Okay.
Okay, it looked grand. And then when it switched over a couple of weeks ago, it immediately started dropping a lot of leaves.
Okay.
How many is too much?
It's an incredibly subjective question. So the best thing that I can do for you, is tell you is that as a plant goes through its harvest cycle, as you switch into bloom and it starts pulling nutrients out of its leaves, it could either be eating too much or not eating enough, but it's going to draw those resources from its leaves. So as long as, are they just dropping off and dying, yellowing out, or
they're yellowing out, and then yellowing out, and they don't appear to have any nothing rotting. Nothing looks like it's. Nothing looks diseased. They all look beautiful.
Fair enough. So there's 2 ways you could address that. You could either let it go and go through its cycle, or you could try to feed it something, which brings you right into our next little parts. Thank you so much. So when you come into nutrients, that's another big important for growing plants, is that there's basically 2 different schools. There's going to be a synthetic nutrient and an organic nutrient. From there, it'll taper out to liquid or to dry amendments. The biggest thing between liquid nutrients and dry amendments is that liquid nutrients are already mineralized. What that means is that the plant is immediately going to uptake it. So you risk burning, but you also give a more effective feed. So if you want to see a result right away because of this, go ahead and give it a little more of its grow, or it's more kelp meal or something higher in nitrogen. Where you have dry amendments, like your meals, like your feather meals, your bone meals, your kelp meals, your lobster meal, all the dry. I personally love dry amendments. It's one of my favorite. It's my personal favorite way to grow. Something needs to happen. You need a catalyst. You need some sort of life to start breaking that down and then mineralizing it for your plant. That's where things like soil conditioners come into play. These are basically just massive loads of bacterial colonies, microbes, and what they'll do is they'll mineralize those nutrients for you and the organic matter that's already in your potting soil to increase uptake. Now, it doesn't necessarily be exclusive to potting soil. You can always add organic. You can always add some sort of biological or microbial colonies, even in a hydroponic system. So when you go from soil and you want to talk about the different mediums that there are, there's primarily an inert medium, which is going to be something like your Pro Mix. You guys heard of Pro Mix? Pro Mix is basically peat moss, a little bit of mycorrhiza most of the time, maybe some organic matter, but typically not. It's going to have basically an aeration mix and something for the roots to actually hold on to. There's no food in there, but people like that because they're able to know exactly what's going into their plant. So basically, if I was going to have Pro Mix, I would use these three together with it, and then I know exactly what's going in the plant, and that's all I'd use. Maybe some calcium at some point, maybe some recharge, maybe some fish shit. It all depends. But
How do you know what, when, what?
the leaves. So the leaves are going to store all of your nutrients. If you can learn to read on a plant's leaves, it's eventually going to tell you exactly what it wants. No plant eats the same, and no strain eats the same, and that's where the benefit of photoperiods and clones come in. To where you could you grow the same plant year after year after year, and you very much get in tune with what it's going to eat, what it's going to feed. When I do like 4 or 5 different strains, I feed them all the same. I'll develop different deficiencies, but I know it's because they eat differently. So like a sativa will be heavier in nitrogen. It will want more nitrogen at the end of its flower because it's always going to yellow out. Now, getting that nitrogen in safely and not mutating it is quite the challenge. And to be perfectly honest, most of the times I'll do something very small like recharge, which has immediately water-soluble nitrogen in it. I know it's going to get enough where it's not going to die, but I'm not trying to get that green back. So as it limes out, so we talk about different nutrients. Nitrogen, potassium, and phosphorus are your cores. Your nitrogen, very simply, is going to be like your green leafy growth. Your phosphorus is going to be more for your root zones and your buds, and then your potassium is going to be an overall health or...
It helps build cell walls.
Yeah.
So it'll strengthen the cell walls of your plant to make them stronger. So it'll give you denser buds, but it'll also strengthen your stalks, strengthen your leaves, all of that.
And that was the nitrogen?
No, nitrogen is going to be for your green growth and your roots. Then your phosphorus is going to be for your actual budding. And potassium is for overall health.
The way to read it on these bottles is that a lot of times you'll see these 3 different numbers, 1, 0, 4. So nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium. So what the numbers mean are its percentage of that element by weight or volume. Typically it is by weight. Liquid it is by volume. Or dry weights, I'm sorry. Dry elements are by weight, liquid is by volume.
So since that has 0 and
Yes.
phosphorus, you feed it a different time, a different stage of the plant?
Correct. So like the way that these 3-part systems, they will work collectively together. So I will use all 3 every week, but my nitrogen and then my potassium are going to change as the plant
As
develops.
it needs it.
Yeah, so you'll start heavier on your nitrogen.
Okay.
Heavy. So you'll start heavier with this and smaller amounts of this.
Okay.
And then as your plant develops, you'll start to build up where you're kind of weaning it off of the nitrogen heavy into the other ones. But you're introducing them throughout the entire life cycle of the plant. That way you're not giving it any shock once you start increasing those amounts. The plant's already used to, those microorganisms and that, everything that's in there.
Is it written down on that box?
So they have feeding charts.
Okay.
One reason we love Advanced is they actually have an app now. In the app, it'll literally tell you by week exactly how much to use for it. But all of the companies that actually make them come out, they have feeding charts where you can go in and it will tell you each week how much to add for it.
Yeah, it's really important to follow your feeding chart when you're using like a system, especially because all of those nutrients play different parts, and then they're all percentages, right? So if one's out of whack, the whole percentage changes. So if you're always following your feeding charts, like that's the best advice I can give you.
So, dope growing for dummies.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. You know what I mean? And at the end of the day, if you have questions, like I always say this, like less is more. Like when in doubt, less is so much more. So I can always put a mineralized nutrient in. Getting it back is very hard. Again, that's like 5 times the volume of your pot, watering it out, then refeeding everything. So like less is always more.
90% of people that kill their plants kill it because they do too much. That is 100%. The biggest issue that we see is people will come in and be like, "What's wrong with my plant?" And we're like, "Oh, you're doing too much. Just give it water, give it a week, let the plant recover."
From there, we can talk about preventative maintenance. I'm a big fan of preventative maintenance. I use a fungicide and a pesticide religiously, whether I have a problem or not. I mean, an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure all day long. I'm a big fan of things like Growers Ally. You can use them the same day as harvest. They are emulsified oils. Basically, it's rosemary, lavender, peppermint. And what they do is they act as a sensory overload for insects. Basically, it'll overwhelm their olfactory system, and they basically just get disoriented and go away. Another neat trick is companion planting. I always have basil, lavender, mint, rosemary in my tents. I have like 4 of them in little pots down from Lowe's, and I let them live there. It's really nice because all those smells and all those oils basically disperse throughout the tent. And there's even a little bit of study saying that basil actually increase your terpenes, but I'm not sure how true that is. However, the most important thing is that as my carbon filter is exhausting right out into our alleyway, I'm not advertising the smell of marijuana. You smell rosemary, basil, mint, lavender. Yeah, huge benefit.
Because while it's legal and the police may not care, your neighbors may care.
They
So
might drop by something to eat with all that nice smell coming down. But
You know, that's fine. They have something to eat. Yeah, fair enough. They can get through that. I would be surprised.
guys,
Yeah.
becoming a complete novice, you should try to grow stuff in his backyard in the old days where it tastes like the wine that Thomas Jefferson used to grow. What was the best way to start if you're going to put it in your backyard?
If you're starting in your backyard,
After you dig the hole.
yeah, that's, again, digging the hole is probably the best way you're going to be able to do it. If you can get your pot in the ground, or basically your plants in the ground, like all that natural mycorrhizal fungi, nematodes, the whole soil web is going to come right into there. An outdoor grow is probably going to be the easiest grow you ever do, and they grow so well.
Yeah, we had a little, yeah.
outdoor grow is going to be the
Yeah.
easy in a sense.
True, fair enough.
I would say the biggest challenge between an outdoor grow and an indoor grow,
Ladders.
one ladders, yes. But the other side is with an outdoor grow, you are always trying to be proactive with your plants.
Mhm.
On it. You're trying to, your pest management is going to be huge. Making sure that you have a regular schedule for that. Making sure that your plants are going to, once they start budding, they're going to expand up, making sure that you have support for those plants. Because you're just going to deal with a lot of
Now,
factors like
support.
wind.
You mean like a stick or something?
Yeah, a stick. For our outdoor grow, we built a net over top of it and weaved it into a net for additional support. So with an outdoor grow, you just have to be more proactive on it because there are a lot more things that are out of your control with it. In an indoor grow, you have a lot more control over it, so you're not dealing with if we get 5 days of straight rain, and you're worried about well, in a fabric pot it's not going to flood. You don't want that buildup because you don't want rot around your plants. You're not going to have as many issues with mildew necessarily as you may outdoors.
We got critters around here that eat them.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Deer love topping plants. They love to
Cats.
just come up and
Dogs, birds.
Then they eat everything else afterwards.
every time I trim, my dogs literally just pick up all the branches for me and run around the house with them. So
Sorry, another question. I've tried outdoor growing, not indoor.
Sure.
So can you describe this tent and how big a space you need?
Absolutely. So typically to grow an indoor plant, you want to give that plant 2 square feet per plant. It gives you a nice room to grow out a canopy. So right here, this one is 4 square feet. So
2 by 2 space. Yeah.
yeah, I can manage this. You know what I mean? Into any kind of tent. There's going to be different tents. There's going to be 2 by 2s, 2 by 4s, 2.5 by 4.5s, 3 by 5s, 4 by 4s, 8 by 8. It just goes on.
And heights are all going to be different. I mean, we have tent kits that are made literally to fit in a standard closet and fit underneath of a wardrobe bar in there. They have, from many years of growing without anyone knowing, people have come and been like, oh, this is exactly where I need to fit this. So you can get tents in almost any size. So it's really kind of just the space that you have, and then you can put the tent into that.
Yeah, and then you adjust your grow style according to your space. So if I had a 2 by 4 tent that was only like 4 feet high, I would definitely be using trellises. A trellis would be a net that I put over there, and I would help bring all these branches down to an even height. That way they can grow out evenly. I have a nice even canopy for nice even light penetration.
You hasn't heard them to go horizontal versus vertical?
I don't. Yeah, if anything,
It's a very durable plant. You can you can bend it, you can twist it. I tell people go until it feels like it's going to snap. If it feels like it's going to snap, that's when you stop.
yeah. I mean, we're about to strip this plant.
Yeah.
And she'll grow right back. Yeah. I've had this one for 3 months, nothing but water, a little bit of soil. That veg mix, I'm a big fan of it, and doing great. The plants don't be afraid to cut them, to strip them, to bend them, break them. They will come back.
Can you trim them to a little bear or something like that and still be fine?
Dude, probably. I mean, if you can manage that, I don't know how to do that, but I would definitely try.
We have a guy that comes in, Kyle. I mean, he's pretty much trying to bonsai his plant out.
Yeah.
He bent it down and is literally turning it into a bonsai tree where it's got different canopies on it.
Yeah, you can braid them together. You can do anything that you want.
Can you control the height with any of the feeding or with anything else, even trimming?
Well, other than like so controlling the height, like I wouldn't try to deprive it of nutrients to control its height, but like when we're talking about with the trellis netting, you could definitely do that and bring it all down to control that height that way.
Okay, so it physically still will grow. You just have to give it the direction.
Yeah, exactly. You just have to train it.
If I was going to grow it in my living room by the window, sort of say, is that about the size of a bucket we need to grow a nice plant in?
So I have this actually in a 3-gallon pot. I just have it in a 5-gallon bucket for now because I use like a sip test.
We also drove up from Richmond with it.
Yeah.
So we had to make
Was it
sure.
never brick?
Yeah, I just wasn't sure how hot it was gonna get. So in the bottom of this bucket, so I grow in basically a big perlite bed, and this big perlite bed, all the roots will grow through the fabric pot and spread out through the tray. So it's kind of nice because I can let them drink whenever they want to, and I still have like a living soil base. At the end of the day, I get nice algae over the perlite. It adds a cover for the roots to protect themselves. Wow, heavier than I thought. And adds a cover for the roots to protect itself, and also the algae helps add oxygen back into the root zone. So again, like that's totally random. So why did I do that? I have no idea, but it seems to work. So I'm gonna roll with it.
The little bag, can it be self-supporting so you can get like a tray from a regular pot plant
Yep.
to put the water in?
Yeah, it is totally self-supporting. The function of this bucket is to hold water and perlite.
I have a question about light cycles.
Yeah.
So I'm an idiot. I just want to preface this.
Me too. It's okay.
Horrible at growing things, right? I kill everything. So like I know that the light cycle has to change in order for you to get its bud. What's the best way to do it? I know it's 12 and 12, but it's just growing, right?
No.
Okay.
There are a few different species of cannabis that will react to light differently. One is like an autoflower that he was talking about. It's bred with like a ruderalis plant. That plant is entirely independent of light. It'll go through its life cycle within about 90 days. You can change the light, you can add the light, you can do whatever you
In
want
a cave, the grow, doesn't matter.
It needs some light.
Okay, it needs to photograph it.
Well, yeah, it needs to be able to process, photosynthesis 100%. So it does need light, but it is independent of like the light cycles. When you get into a photo period, it's not going to react until you change that light cycle. So this plant I keep under 18 hours of light and 6 hours of darkness, and it is going to stay in veg. When I want to bring it down into flower, I will switch that light cycle to 12 hours on and 12 hours off. That basically just tells the plant that it's going into fall. If you do it outdoors, it's not going to wait until 12:12. It's just going to notice the degradation of light and respond accordingly.
And if you want to grow huge ones outdoors, you can supplement that additional light by just any light source. So while the plant's not going to take nutrients in the photosynthesis that it will from the sun on in that UV light, it's still going to trick the plant enough to think that it's still that light cycle. So you can actually extend that and grow them longer.
Okay, cool.
You can't go out at 12 o'clock at night with a flashlight, though. You have to have something special.
If you got a big enough flashlight,
Yeah.
Yeah, more power to it.
Yeah, no, we just have like one of those little like those LED lights that we got from Lowe's. Just
What,
plugged
like
it in.
put in your garden or something like that? Or?
No, it was like a floodlight, like a wood
Oh,
light.
yeah, okay.
Yeah, so we just put it on there from 8 p.m. until midnight until July 15th, until the summer solstice.
There you
How much does the plant need to be bathed in light?
6 to 8 hours direct light a day.
The whole plant.
The whole plant. Yep, especially if you're outdoors.
Basically.
go. How many times can you trick the plant into budding?
You can do it indefinitely. You can only do it with the photo period plant though. An autoflower won't let you clone or re-veg. The autoflower's life cycle is finite already. So anything that you take from an autoflower, if you took a clipping of a clone from an autoflower, you can flower out that branch, but you're never going to be able to re-veg it. Photo periods, you're able to do something called re-vegging, which is basically budding it all out entirely, save a few leaves here and there, maybe a few heads, and then put it back under 18 hours of light. After about 2.5 months, it'll go back into its full vegetative growth, but during that time, it's going to have mutated, twisted leaves. People do it. It's a technique called monster cropping. However, it's not practiced widely because it's not worth the time. Because in 2.5 months of re-vegging, I could already. This is only 2 months old. Like why?
if you want to keep one photo period going, you're going to be better off before you go into flower, take clones from that,
Yep.
and start that life cycle up with it, and then flower your plant and just continue to take those clones with it.
So, when you want a clone of this, do you let it get to the bud stage? Do you clone it from a seed, or do you cut off a piece like you do other plants and stick it in the dirt?
Exactly like that.
Oh, really?
Yep.
We're gonna do it here in a minute. Yeah.
And ideally, you do it before you change the lights.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, if you do go into flower and you start to see some white hairs, you can re-veg that. I can tell you it's going to look like a crazy alien plant for a little bit there, while all those hairs start turning into leaves and kind of coming out with it. But it's going to take more work to re-veg the plant than it would be if you take it before you go into flower.
So you can't clone it once it's starting to.
You can, but that's the technique called monster cropping.
Yeah.
Is that you take a clone of a flowering plant and then you have to re-veg it. It takes about 2 months.
Well, it's 100% necessary to have airflow in there, like a fan or something.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, airflow, like you definitely need airflow is to be one of the most important things. It prevents a lot of mildew, a lot of dust, a lot of mites, even like pests at some point, at certain infestation levels. But yeah, airflow, light, water, three most important things. Then nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium. Somewhere way down the line is CalMag. Anybody? Yeah.
CalMag, anyone who's been online, I'm sure you've seen a million things about CalMag. CalMag is just kind of the cure-all. Like, you go, I don't really know what's going on. You're like, yeah, try some CalMag first. And like 70% of the time it fixes it. It's just a huge shot of calcium and magnesium for your plant.
And most of the time it has a lot of trace elements in
Yeah.
it too. So if you're looking at a zinc and iron or boron or deficiency,
So
your
a shot of
CalMag
whiskey
is
for a sick plant.
pretty much. Yeah.
So, your dirt, when you start out in the beginning, what do you put in your dirt? How much perlite? How much?
So if I'm going to make a soil, I'll typically do something like a Coots blend, which is like a third aeration. So it would be like
Clay pebbles,
yeah, clay
perlite.
pebbles, perlite, vermiculite, lava rock, a third compost, and then like a third peat moss. From there, basically I'll mix it all together and I'll add it in my
No
supplementals.
topsoil.
So not in the way. No, I would say no topsoil. Yeah. So that's one of the ways I do it. I've got another living bag. Like, there's a million ways to do it. Like I'll mix my own soil, I'll buy my own soil, then mix it together with something. Yeah, I'm just psychotic that way. So.
I take it you guys actually got the stuff we can just buy back, dig and throw in the pot?
Yeah, so I said we have a couple different. We only brought 3 different kind of types of soil that there are. So first, like this Michigan mediums, there are. We were talking earlier about how legalization has brought technology with it up a lot. So the Michigan mediums is going to be like a truly water-only soil. Basically, it's going to have all the nutrients that you're going to get from your feeding system already in that soil for it. And as you water, they're going to come out of stasis and be provided for your plants in it.
It's a full cycle soil, you don't have to do anything for the whole life?
So there's a veg mix and a bloom mix, just because you want that extra phosphorus, that extra potassium as you're going to bloom. So it's going to be heavier on those things for it. What you can do though is you can absolutely take a bigger pot and layer it so that your bloom mix is on the bottom, your veg mix is on the top. So as your roots grow, they'll grow down through it and take it and then get that bloom mix on it.
Is it reusable once you're finished with that life cycle?
You could amend it, like the medium itself will be reusable, but like the minerals and the nutrients are already gone. So I mean, at that point, with Michigan mediums, like I wouldn't think it'd be worth it to remend. I would just rebuy it because the amendments themselves, like the azomite, dolomite, lime, like you can either get something massive like Tappan Roots, which is actually a really nice soil amender, but then you've got to mix it. And at the end of the day, like you still have to pour it back out onto a tarp, mix it, then put it back together. I'm not a big fan of mixing soil in 95-degree weather. Yeah.
I'll say a big thing that you will run into when deciding how you want to grow is monetize your time as well. How much time do you want to spend with it? Because you can either go very short time that you have to spend. You're going to spend every day with your plant. You're going to go in and look at it every single day, no matter what. But it's figuring out. That's a real big question: is how much time do you want to spend? Because that's going to change your growing style with it. You can get a living soil, which is going to be a lot of time. Build a living soil, which is going to be a lot of time up front, mixing, getting all that soil together. But then after that, it's essentially going to be water only. That's something you can just add some dry amendments to. About once a year, once every 6 months.
Yeah.
Just kind of re-amend it pretty easily, and then you've basically created the soil that's outdoors just inside your grow space for it.
Yeah, I mean, the living soil, I'm spending more time right now managing the cover crop than I am the actual plants.
Yeah.
If you put it in a tent, that's for all year round grow.
Sure.
correct?
Mhm.
So if you only want to grow outside, you want to start in February, starting it inside, and then with no tent. Just start it inside and then put it outside when it's warm enough in March.
So you can start it inside. Once you start getting real light leaves, that's when you're going to want that extra light on it. If you have an area where you can kind of control it, you're good. Start kind of putting it outside just to harden it a little bit as it grows, and then once you get more consistent weather, once you get more consistent light and all, that's when you want to move it outside the whole time.
Yeah, I mean, you don't need a tent to go ahead and do it, but it's really nice. Just consider the fact that your light's gonna be on 18 hours a day, and you like to sleep.
Yeah.
I like to sleep. It's very helpful.
If it's going in your bedroom or space,
Yeah.
your light will
Sunglasses.
yeah you're gonna sleep with
Right.
sunglasses on.
Yeah.
Do you
Yes.
have grow light suggestions? Like,
I mean, based off brands, no. I would say so. There's a lot of controversy between HID and LEDs. I'm gonna be honest with you. Like, I have never really messed with HID. Don's over there like sucker. So as we talked about with tent sizes, right? So most tents will come between like 5 and 8 feet tall. It's really hard for me to put like a high intensity discharge bulb in there, something that's really hot, just because of how much it's going to take up, so how much space it's going to take up, and then the heat that's generated. HIDs have come a long ways. I'm assuming I don't need a separate air conditioner for each bulb anymore, so that's fantastic. I would prefer LEDs. They are incredibly efficient. You will not get the same results from an LED quantum board as you would from an HID. If you was just a true light by light comparison. However, there are many other factors in there, including how it affects your environment. So if your temperature goes up and it's scorching your plants, who cares if you have the best light? Your plants are dead. You know what I mean? So do something that I would look for something that's relatively affordable, a nice little beginner light. I mean, you can get $100 like little quantum board full spectrum lights relatively anywhere.
Yeah.
You know, start with something like that. Don't get one of those blurples, the blue and purple lights off of Amazon that's
yeah, I already
trash.
killed one with that.
Go full spectrum.
It's just not enough.
It's not enough, and then the other part of it is, the sun is full spectrum all the time. The sun, you don't walk outside and it's blue and purple. Your plant's going to take the colors of light that it wants, throughout the different stages and all.
I don't know if this is helpful, but I bought a shop light
Mhm.
from Lowe's with a one warm and one cool bulb,
Sure.
and I don't know if it worked
Yep.
as well as what you're talking about, but it worked and
Nope.
it's super cheap.
No, you're absolutely right. So I have like all my clones that I take. I have T5 bulbs,
Yeah,
fluorescent
yeah,
bulbs, with one 3200 Kelvin and one 6000 Kelvin. Works great. Keeps them in veg. Perfect. I have not tried flowering them out though. When they go into flower, they'll need a little more light. I would say absolutely try it. Like, why not? It's just time.
How much light? I mean, like how do you figure out whether this LED?
A lot of math.
Oh.
Seriously.
You let people way smarter than you do it.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know how smart you are. I let people way smarter than me do
Yeah.
it. Yeah, it's
Okay, so there's a few different things that people will measure through light. One is called lux, which is the actual photons being emitted from the light. One is called PAR, which is your photosynthetic active radiation, which basically means of this fake light, what can this plant use? And then PPFD, which I am not even going to try and pretend like I know that acronym, but basically what it is, it's your PAR per square foot. So you always want to get a light that matches your growing space. So a 2x2s, 2x4s, 3x5s, you want to have lights that will cover a 2x2 area, a 2x4 area, or a 3x5. Otherwise, it is just wasted space. So you wanted to look for something that basically has a decent PPFD, and it has the spectrums. So you want something with a nice blue spectrum that will transition from blue to green to yellow, and then have equal blue and equal red. My God, I wish we had one of those charts.
I have a laptop that I think has a chart.
Yeah. From
You
there,
go online and get print out a hard copy of the charts and all that if you wish.
well, so here's the thing: each chart is going to be specific to the light. So I can't give you like a chart for a different light. So when you're looking at your lights, just make sure you have. He'll pull it up here. So it's hard to explain without actually showing
Oh,
anybody.
you guys make the charts yourselves?
No.
The light manufacturers do. We let them do
Yeah,
that
yeah.
for us.
Yeah.
Yep.
Like I said, you go to them and get their chart off there.
They typically come as like they're marketed. Basically, that's how people buy lights is basically by their PAR and their PPFD and then their price. So typically, if you've ever seen, they'll get one up here.
Sorry, I just went to go connect to Wi-Fi and Wi-Fi is not your fucking internet.
That's
It's
ours.
great. Is it? That's amazing.
Oh man.
I can get you on that one if you want.
Should have one. So a PPFD chart is going to look like this. I don't know. I guess I could walk around with it. And so basically what it's going to be is it's going to tell you the different numbers are going to show you how much light is coming from that each area, from each of those areas. You really kind of want it. It's going to they'll also tell you from what distance on it. And you really want that to be as close to 1,000 or above. Right there in the middle. That's where it's going to be ideal when you're looking on the light for it.
Hydroponic growing, that's another medium that can be used. Hydroponic is either through like an aero reservoir where basically mist is sprayed constantly into a reservoir then recycled through, and it basically provides a high humidity. Or you can do something called like deep water culture. Deep water culture is basically filling a 5-gallon bucket full of water, nutrients, and letting your plant just go ahead and drink and eat out of it as it goes. Some of the challenges with that are going to be managing pH consistently, because your pH is always going to change. Ensuring that the water temperature stays below 72 degrees. As the temperature of the water goes up, so does the level of dissolved oxygen in the water actually goes down. So you could potentially drown your plant in a bucket full of water just because it has no oxygen, oddly enough. I mean,
So would drain to waste be a better system?
I do like drain to waste. I like drain to waste for soil, for like an ebb and flow. Or are you talking about like a flood table?
Yeah, exactly, like a flood table.
I would do a flood table.
Because then you don't have the change in pH as much, you don't lose as much oxygen.
Exactly.
You're using about the same amount of water because you have to drain it 2 weeks later roughly anyway.
Yeah, drain to waste, like, that's something that I would not immediately say no for that. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I want to try that.
Yeah, hydroponics, man. Like I did deep water culture for like 2 years. It was just a lot of work. Yeah, I mean, it was
Yeah,
a lot of
for
work.
hot.
Yeah, well, exactly. Yeah, fair enough. Exactly. It just wasn't my cup of tea. You know, there's no right or wrong way. There's no best way. It's the way that works for you, the way that you enjoy.
And I would say that's the big challenge is if you take 100 people that grow and put them in a room, you're going to get 100 different answers.
Oh yeah.
And 70% are going to tell you that theirs is the best way to ever grow.
Well, it's the best way for me to grow mine.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But all of our circumstances are so different.
And you run into it like if you're watching, watching videos online, reading stuff online. The biggest problems with that are 2 things. One is that is literally just a moment in time. So you don't necessarily get the build up to how they got to that or what happens after that with it. It's just that singular moment. And then the second is just conditions are going to be completely different. You know, a lot of the videos on YouTube are coming out of Canada. Canada doesn't have Virginia's humidity. It doesn't have a lot of the issues we have. So while they're great instructional pieces, that's what's going to work best for those environments. Just make sure you're flexible enough to go, okay, well, that's not working here. These are my problems.
You guys mentioned curing.
Sure.
Carry on.
Curing.
Here's your segue.
All right, my segue. Okay, so after you grow your plant, you harvest it, you're basically going to either trim it, do a wet trim, or you can do a dry trim. I prefer dry trim because it's a slower dry, and it basically helps maintain the terpene profile and the flavors. You hang it upside down, trim anything that's not shiny, take it off, and then you basically put it in a jar for a week. That jar that you're keeping in there for a week, or a Bovita pack or a cereal container. I use cereal containers because I don't like opening 15 jars. So it's like a nice 12-quart cereal container. Fantastic. As the bud continues to dry, the chlorophyll breaks down and it creates that haze smell. So if you ever got produce from the grocery store and you leave it in that plastic bag, it degrades a lot faster. Just because as that gas is being released, it's staying inside. So where you want to burp it is to get that gas out. After about, a week to 10 days to where you don't really smell that hay smell anymore, or that chlorophyll smell, then go ahead and toss it into your curing container. I'm a big fan of humidity regulated packs like Bovita packs. I usually do about 62%. Toss it in there, and then at that point, after curing it, I open it up once a week, call it a day, turn it over on itself, put it back in, and then just in the dark, about 62% humidity.
So you say after you pick it, you put it in the jar for a week.
Mm-hmm.
And then, total growing time from picking it to toking it.
Well, so here's the thing, right? So like it's gonna be entirely like on your circumstances. Like don't that week is a guideline.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It is not a golden rule. None of these are golden rules.
Yeah.
You know, 15 to 20 degrees apart.
Ideal
that's the most
conditions.
important thing. Yeah.
Something is gonna go wrong every time. Something's gonna go wrong.
Every time.
Yeah.
Yeah, you basically want it to finish drying, and then we want to try and preserve the terpenes. Yeah, so it's just like maintaining a cigar box if you have cigars.
Yeah, I got night yucky, but
Yeah, there you go. Cured in that.
Bravo.
As long as you want.
now, does it change taste and smell the longer you let it dry out? Most of the stuff won't dry out for like 6 years.
So the longer you cure it. So the drying process is different than the curing process, and I'm not going to pretend like I'm a chemist. So basically, the best way I could probably break it down is that the drying process is trying to dry out the organic matter and break down the chlorophyll. The curing process is trying to preserve the bud structure and the terpene profile.
Yeah, it brings out.
What was that?
It like brings out all the natural.
Absolutely.
oils and
Yeah,
stuff.
absolutely.
The longer you actually have a cure, does it break down the CBD more into the cannabinoids? You get stronger THC9s and whatnot?
Entirely possible. I'm not a chemist.
We like way too much to try that.
Yeah, I got some.
Like, no,
I mean, I've got
I'll
some
just
weed
sit
that's
for a
been
couple
sitting in my
years.
cabinet for like 2 years. I mean, I wouldn't smoke it, but that's why it's been there. Yeah. And again, don't compare yourself so much to like other people too, because at the end of the day, like especially on the internet, like I know it's like a big thing for people. Say, oh, I want my stuff to like be perfect. I want my stuff to be Instagrammable. Stay humble. There's always gonna be somebody that's going to make your best buds look like mids. Like there's nothing you can do.
And I say one thing you also said was humidity. And I think it's on our website too. Is a big thing for your humidity is going to be your humidity and temperature are going to go hand in hand with each other. So nice way to look at it, and again a guideline, because different strains are going to take different things. Is to look up a VPD, which is vapor pressure deficit. I would switch D and P on that. But it's just gonna be a nice chart where it's gonna give you what your temperature is, and then give you guidelines as to where you want your humidity to be on it, as well for it. So you can. I always tell people, pick the one that's easier for you to control. So if it's very hard for you to control the temperature in an area, but you can put a humidifier or a dehumidifier in that area for it, adjust your humidity to match your temperature with it. If it's super hard to control the humidity in an area, then adjust your temperature to go with it.
Where was that chart that you just saw?
You can Google it. I will have it on our website by tomorrow morning. And we have a lot of stuff on our website as promotion for us. Why not? If you go to our website, we have in the top here. There's a little thing that just says Growers Resources. If you click on that, it's just a lot of videos that we've used. Different brands here. Feeding charts are on there. Videos and journals that we've just used through our grows. That we like, and I'll put the VPD on there too.
Okay, next technical question. Website address.
www.homegrown-va.com. -va.com.
So at this node is where roots are going to start growing out of. So you'll go ahead and I clip mine at the top. Most of the people would want to clip theirs at the bottom, but I have to manage my height. So that's why I take my clones from the top and I let the lower green grow up. So clip it off. These are going to be too small to take clones from, so you're going to clip those off. The reason why you're clipping these off is because all these leaves are going to transpire water. The same thing that we talked about with vapor pressure deficit, it's actually really important for the plant to be able to maintain its moisture levels. We cut off the tips so the leaves stop transpiring water because there are now no more roots for it to uptake water. Otherwise, if you don't do that, they'll basically wilt off and die. I do a nice little, I try to score it very lightly around the edges. Got a fancy rooting hormone, Clonex, I'm a big fan. Been using this bottle for like 3 years.
This is just how I do my roses.
Absolutely. So here's the thing, right? If I can't tell you how many times a day that I hear, oh, the technology has gone up so much, it's the same technology. The only thing that's changed is the marketing. Like straight up, we've been doing this for thousands and thousands and millions of years. It's just agriculture, you know? If you are any kind of gardener, I promise, like, you will grow some amazing plants. Think about it as just a pepper plant that you train like a tomato. That's all it really. Straight up. The pepper plant, honestly, it's the same food requirements, same soil conditions, same temperature. You know, and you train it like a tomato just to get better results. So I put this in these little rye cubes. The rye cubes are designed to maintain the exact amount of moisture needed to basically provide germination or rooting. Most of the times you don't want to keep them in water. However, I didn't bring enough Ziploc bags, so I'm sorry, they're in water now.